What's up everybody, and welcome to another half-assed intro by me. I was about to upload this video and then realized that I completely forgot to film an intro or outro. There's gonna be yelling birds in this intro because I just let them out and they're feeling a little crazy. Today's my day off, so I popped on really quick to do an intro. I did not put face on. I did not do my makeup. It's my day off and I don't care. In fact, to be completely honest with you, I didn't even put on pants to film this intro, so that's fine. You can choose to see this as very lax YouTube etiquette, or you can choose to see this as a very rare behind the scenes look at what it's like being on the internet. All right, I'm going back to bed. But yeah, enjoy the video, and if you like it, you know what to do. And don't bite the hand that feeds you. Alright, so there's been a few big changes in my tank since we last did a tank tour, which I believe was in January. Obviously the biggest change, if you watched my last video, was that Yzma and Kronk, my first pair of clownfish, unfortunately did pass away. My firefish Milo has also been moved to my 6-gallon fluval edge tank, but here I have 2 new baby clownfish to introduce. So this is Tulio and Miguel. Hopefully you catch the Road to El Dorado reference there. They are very small still, so they're really enjoying having the extra tank space, and they've been settling in great. You might notice that they look a little bit different. This is because they are snowflake clowns, so they're still the same species as Yzma and Kronk, still Ocellaris, but through selective breeding, they have very unique markings. So jumping straight into coral here, I'm just going to make my way around the tank and tell you a little bit about each one. The first corals that are just down in the bottom here, we've got this bright GSP frag. GSP means green star polyp, and it's honestly one of my favorite species of coral. They're kind of notorious for growing out of hand really quickly and carpeting the tank, but I personally love that look, and I'm really hoping that this frag will eventually cover this whole black wall that you see on the right here. They're really hardy and versatile, which is also why you see them in so many beginner tanks. And then immediately to the left of my GSP is one of several candy cane corals that I have in here. All these frags were once a larger colony that I unfortunately got a little bit slippery with and dropped, so I now have many smaller pieces, but that's fine. They look cool and they really fluoresce under my blue lights. Candy canes are another great beginner coral. They do best in lower lighting and lower flow, and mine have done really well in the sand bed, and the couple times I tried to move them up into the rock, they actually closed up and sulked, so they stay down in the bottom here and they do really well. A really easy way to tell if your corals might be receiving too much flow is that the soft, fleshy polyp will almost look like it's melting in the direction of the current. It'll look saggy, and the hard calcium skeleton you can see here that it's attached to will actually start to push up through the polyp in a ridge kind of pattern, which will eventually damage the softer polyp. And whenever I see my corals start to look melty, the first thing I do is reduce their flow, and it has brought them back every time. And right next to my candy cane and my GSP is this massive Duncan coral, which is absolutely gorgeous. Like, I am so in love with this Duncan, guys. I mean, just look at it. Last I counted, it's got about 12 heads on it. It's huge. Duncans are generally pretty easy corals. They prefer medium light, medium flow, and aren't really aggressive, so they do need to kind of be protected a little bit from some of the other corals in your tank. Next up is my Welso. So these guys are actually a species of brain coral, and this one was pretty retracted when I first got it, but it's rebounded really quickly under lower flow. Its colors are really starting to pop, and it fluoresces bright purple and green under my blue lights, which I will film someday. They're just a real hassle to try and deal with on camera. So from this rock onward is the higher flow area of my tank. It's really important to have a variance of flow because a lot of the corals we keep in mixed tanks like this wouldn't be found together in the wild because they all have different light and flow needs. And speaking of aggressive corals, look at this torch right here. This is an aggressive coral for sure. Torch corals belong to the Philia family and are really popular in the hobby because they're beautiful and give the look of an anemone, but without causing quite as much unrelenting chaos as an anemone. These corals like really high flow, medium highlight, and probably the biggest thing you should know about these guys and what makes them so aggressive is that they have sweeper tentacles that they can extend out to up to 6 inches that they wave around the tank, usually at night, and sting everything they can, which often ends up being your other corals. If you keep a torch in your tank, it's wise to give them as wide a berth as you can. This one's doing well, and I've never seen it produce any sweepers, but as it grows, I will probably move it so that it's not blowing directly into my reef and rock work to protect any potential issues with my other corals down the road. So, fun fact that you may or may not know, corals are actually animals that form together to create large colonies, which is why each head or polyp actually has a little mouth. You can see the dark hole in the center of my torch, and that is actually its mouth. Corals get nutrition from a couple of different ways. They can catch small fish and other animals and put that meat directly into their mouth, but the color of coral is actually made by a microscopic species of animal called zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae inhabit the coral and provide it with nutrition by absorbing energy from the sun. And that's why it's so important to have coral-specific lighting for your tank, because without proper lighting and husbandry, those zooxanthellae will die off, and this is actually what causes corals to bleach. So on the rock directly above my torch coral, I have this adorable little frag of, you guessed it, GSP. I love my GSP guys. So this one is a little bit different than the one I have in the back, not quite as green, still really healthy. Its stems actually glow and fluoresce quite a bit under my blues, and I'm kind of hoping it'll just take over this whole rock. Right above it, I have these little guys, which are my Zoas. So Zoas are super popular in the hobby, and for obvious reason. They're absolutely stunning. My camera really doesn't do them justice. They're beautiful. They glow really nice under my blues, and they are a bit of an encrusting coral as well. They're kind of known for taking over the space that they're given, so I'm really hoping to just let them and the GSP go to town on this rock, because I would love nothing more than to have a million different shapes and colors of Zoas and GSP covering this whole front part of my tank. So welcome to the other side of my tank. This side has some of my older corals and some of my fussier corals, and it also is the side with the most flow. So right now, based on the species I have in my tank, I'm somewhat limited as to what I can put in here, but probably the most noticeable is this Kenya tree right here. So it was about 1 inch tall when I got it and has really just taken over this tank. Kenyas are notorious for kind of just growing with like zero regard for where you put them in the tank. They're super hardy. They will kind of take over if you don't keep them in check, but I really love the flow that it adds, and I just think it's really beautiful. It doesn't fluoresce like the others do, and some people find that off-putting because it's, you know, just basic and brown, but I really like how branchy and full it looks. That's also why I think Kenyas are such a great beginner coral. They look really cool and are really beautiful, and they're super easy to maintain, very, very little care involved, and as long as you have your basic parameters in check, your Kenyas are really gonna flourish. Oh, and then sadly right next to my Kenya is a tragic, dead, bleached Monty Frag. So Montipora is kind of known for being a little bit fussier of a coral, and I picked this guy up from an online ad, and it wasn't doing great in the guy's tank, so I bought it, and I couldn't bring it back. We're not gonna look at it anymore. Moving on. Here's another candy cane. It's doing great. This was the base of my larger colony. This is what's left of it. Since I put it on the side of the tank, it's grown 4 more heads. So yay for coral successes. Losing corals sucks because corals don't actually have a lifespan. They'll live forever as long as they're healthy and well maintained. So if a coral dies, it's because you, as a reef keeper, messed something up. So it always sucks to lose a coral. So then right above my last candy cane frag, I have this Recordia yuma. So these guys are, I believe, a species of mushroom Kouros. So it's kind of similar to anemones. They do have a foot. They can move around a little bit. And honestly, they're really the only thing in my tank that I regret placing. So they typically do best towards the bottom of the tank, but they were my first corals. I wasn't really sure what I was doing when I put them in there, so I gave them this little space. and this one decided it liked it here, grew up nice and big, and propagated many times. So just over top of this little ridge here behind the bigger Recordia, you can't really see them. There's about 5 other small ones, and the only reason I regret placing them here is because it's kind of some prime real estate. It's directly under my light in a really good flow area, and there are other, not to be a jerk, but there are other fancier corals that I would like to put there that I can't because these ones are now rooted and happy as clams. No pun intended. That was a terrible joke. Anyway, they're staying there. They're not moving. They refuse. But that's alright. They still look cool. I'm just sad because I can't make use of the real estate and the light. But whatever. It's fine. Okay, and then coming in last on our tour here, these are my Philia. So these are honestly some of my favorite corals. I love Philia. I love how much they wiggle in the flow. These guys are a whole class of corals, Philia, and so these are 2 different species. So the bigger guy in the back is my hammer coral, and the smaller brown one in the front is my frog spawn. And these corals are actually in the same family as torch corals, so they are more aggressive corals, but they tend to not be quite as aggressive as the torch. You'll see I have both the hammer and the frog spawn are nestled quite close together, and that is because they get along really well with each other. As far as Philia go, they can stay pretty close to each other, and they're doing really well. A torch can't stay in this little Philia cluster I have going on. It'll sting everything. These 2 are a little bit more peaceful, and they're doing really well. I don't know if you saw just now when I jerked the camera underneath there, but my hammer is actually in the process of growing a really nice, big, full new head. So that's good. You want to see your corals growing. That means they're healthy and doing well. I feed mine once a week with refroids, and everything else they get comes from the light. Alright guys, so that's it for this tank tour. I hope you found it informative. Y'all know I love talking about my tank and my corals, and I figured it was time to give you an update because, as you can see, lots of things have changed. Please excuse my clownfish bickering in the back right now. They are a mated pair, but like any couple, they do occasionally have scuffles. They're fine. They're just, you know, they're a little dramatic, but that's okay. We all have those days. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the last couple seconds here of my tank.